Welcome into PrepAquatics.com. I'm Skylar King. As always, you can email me, Skylar at PrepAquatics.com. You can follow me on Twitter at SkylarPrep. State meet recap, where we saw Rosary answer all the test questions. They really got it done front to back, and everybody contributed that reasonably could. I think the girl that I will remember the most from this Rosary team from this weekend specifically is Bella Wojtowicz, because she's not somebody that really stood out all year as one of the frontline stars of this team, but she really performed like a frontline star for the Beads this weekend, and I give her all the credit in the world for coming through in a big way. And without her, they don't have the cushion that they ended up with. They'd have been sweating it out on Saturday without her contribution. She just did a tremendous job both in the IM and then contributing to free relays, and that was I think most state champions have somebody like that is kind of the unsung hero, and I really think that it's her. I think the upperclassmen, we've seen them perform for years now. Rentz, Naraki, and O'Connor. Obviously, the young kids came through that needed to, with Annabelle Naraki and Nikula. Even though Nikula, we kind of saw from what she had done after the season last year was going to be tough for 8 people to beat her in the butterfly. That she was going to probably end up in the top. And then, Olivia Moore, who was in that upperclassmen group, but had the unfortunate 17th in the 100 free, and what a bounce back to not just make the breaststroke top 8, but then what a swim on Saturday for her to go all the way up to second. Now Rosary has the top 2 returners in the breaststroke for next year, and that's another one of the subplots to all this, is that these teams that we're talking about, New Trier, runner-up, great performance. On paper, their 2 best girls coming back don't come out for the team, and they're still a swim or 2 away from really making things interesting for the state title. And the majority of these girls are back for New Trier. They win the medley. To win the medley, when they lost a girl, or she didn't come out, in Tierney Lenahan, that was tied for the state championship in the backstroke last year. It really just shows, we know that New Trier usually has great depth, but for Marin Shimkus and Zara Bolton and this whole squad, Maeve O'Donnell, these girls all stepped up who had not scored before, and became the stars of the team. And that's what New Trier needed, and they got it. And again, New Trier is going to be, for 365 days, going to be figuring out how they can beat Rosary next year. And that they obviously had probably the difference in the meet, if you look at it, is the contribution that Rosary got from their freshmen that New Trier didn't. New Trier had some individual qualifiers that were freshmen, but they didn't score, and so that's something that New Trier is going to need next year, is those girls now as sophomores to contribute, because obviously they're graduating Noveline, their diver, and that was the one thing coming in that we knew these other schools were going to have that Rosary was diving. And if they're not going to have it next year, now I never count New Trier out from scoring a diver, because they always seem to, but they're going to need additional individual contributions from the girls that didn't qualify in the top 16 this year. And then Stevenson, I think they also will be. I think Kurova is a big loss for them, both as a sprint freestyler on relays and what she did individually. I think she can be replaced by Annika Donovan if she's able to come back healthy next year, and what she'd be able to do individually. And they've got depth, so I think their relays will be fine. But for specifically Stevenson to make that leap into potentially winning a state title next year, their relays really have to step up relative to what they did at state, because they probably got to win a relay, at least one. And I thought they were going to win the 200 relay this weekend. I thought they had a shot to break the state record, and all credit to Rosary for getting the job done. And I don't think you can say enough about how well it worked out with the order that Glenn Brown had. And, I give him all the credit in the world for that, because I think it's not easy to pick a relay order that works out that well. Everybody thinks they have the order that's going to work out the best, but with the way Rents in the 2-hole got them open water for that back half, and they were able to hang on to it. That really is just perfection in terms of the way things played out. And so, credit to him for lining that up, and obviously knowing that he could trust Nakula in the butterfly, in the medley. Otherwise, what happens in the free relays isn't possible either, with Rent being on both. For LT, this is a team that's really got to stay hungry in the off season, because again, they're going to be really good next year, better than this year. But again, they've got mountain to climb to get their first trophy since 1995, because those three teams ahead of them are bringing so much back. And what freshmen are going to come in? Rosary, who knows, they could have 2 or 3 more freshmen coming in that might contribute. New Trier obviously could have new freshmen that can come in and contribute. Stevenson, same deal. And so if LT doesn't have freshmen coming in ready to contribute, then these girls, these sophomores, these juniors that really push this team to the heights that they reached this year are going to have to be the improvement that the team needs to make next year an even more special season, because those other 3 teams are not going to hand it to them. And I think as you look ahead, those are the 4 teams for next year. We kind of saw it with St. Charles North and with Hinsdale Central, both good weekends, but Hinsdale Central, not enough frontline star power, and they lose Bocos to graduation, which this weekend was their frontline star power. And so they need multiple girls to step up and become double top 8 scorers to compensate for Bocos graduating. And for St. Charles North, they just didn't have the supporting cast around Bew and Stavropoulos that they needed to push it over the finish line. I just don't think in the boys or girls, really, the way the state of things is, you're gonna have a really hard time winning trophies without 3 relays in the top 8. There's 2 extra spots now. Top 6 in 3 relays was a tough ask for anybody, one powerhouse team that was locked in, and so you're basically fighting every other team in the state for 5 spots. Now eight should be more doable for these top teams, but obviously St. Charles North bagged their medley, and if they don't pick up a star breaststroker freshman, which they aren't that I'm aware of, I would guess they might do that again, because you don't want to risk Bew, Stavropoulos, or both swimming on a relay that doesn't get top 8. And so if they could somehow put a medley together, headlined by Jenna Williams and 3 members of the supporting cast that could get bottom, then maybe that would work out in a positive way, because it would still have the 4 individual swims from those 2 stars. And Jenna Williams, I think will perform better at state next year. Her sectional time would have obviously been top 8 in the backstroke, and she'll be a senior and have all the seasoning that she should need to be confident going into that meet next year and perform better. As you look at the top individuals, obviously Parkey goes out as a 6-time state champion, and honestly, who knows? Because there's so much uncertainty around that COVID year, and same thing with Leah Hayes. Obviously, she opted not to keep going, and so I don't give that as much consideration as Parkey would have had an opportunity to be an 8-time state champion. I mean, she won 6 state titles pretty convincingly. I mean, she clearly slipped in the backstroke finals on her start, and it just didn't matter. She was too good, even for Vera Connick, and the word was out there that Connick was not 100%, and so I mean, if there was going to be a year where she wasn't going to be 100%, I'm glad it was this year, where she was an underdog to Parkey in the backstroke anyway, but Connick should be a big-time favorite for her last 2 seasons in the backstroke, now that Parkey's moving on to Stanford. And obviously she wanted to get the record in the 100 free. She fell I think it was like 5,100 short. But again, I don't think that tarnishes her legacy in any way. I don't think she's as good as Olivia Smoliga, as even as a high school swimmer. And Smoliga is the only girl or boy, for that matter. Matt Grievers is the other one. In the same 3 events, actually, graduated as a 3-time state record holder, 50 free, 100 free, 100 back. And, both those kids are Olympians. Leah Hayes, if she had stayed swimming high school, she probably could have figured out a way to do it in a 3rd event. But it makes it more special when only the elite of the elite that have Olympic gold medals are able to pull stuff like that off. The 500 free was obviously the individual race of the weekend, and even though it definitely wasn't the fastest race of the weekend, but Gressick and Bocas swam head-to-head in finals, and I give Gressick a lot of credit. I thought she was going to fade at some point, and she never did. She took it by the throat early and never relinquished it. That was an incredible swim by her. It was an incredible IM by her teammate Chloe Diner to break 2 minutes. Only the 3rd girl, and we saw 2 of them this weekend to ever break 2 minutes in the IM in Illinois, and they just all happened to happen in the last 3 seasons. And those 2 are going to leave a huge void. They got a really nice 500 swim out of freshman Lauren Sidorsky, but that Oswego team is not going to be what it's been with those 2 superstars moving forward. And so that kind of goes back to what I was saying. I mean, Rosary, Nutrier, Stevenson, and LT are going to go in to next season all with serious trophy aspirations, and I don't, unless there's a massive freshman influx or transfers or something crazy somewhere else, I don't see anyone else getting into the mix with this group. They're just too good. And you know, even of those teams we're talking about, they're gonna have to do something special, all of them except Rosary, to give Rosary a run. I mean, those two free relays are all back. They're the defending state champions in both. Who's beating Becky Renz? I don't think anybody. You know, we had some hope of you know, a potential showdown with Bew in the fly, especially after Bew goes 158 in the IM. You go, okay, maybe she can really make it a bang bang finish in the fly, and Rentz was still too good, and so they're just so set up for a repeat. And granted, when you're at the top, you don't have a ton of room for additional points, but that supporting cast really does. I mean, Annabelle Naraki could easily score a second race next year. You know, Wojtowicz is back. You know, she should finish even higher potentially in the IM. And you know, the other thing that they had the flexibility with Annabelle Naraki is she might be the backstroker on the medley. I think that's probably the most likely option right now. And so maybe she doesn't swim the 200 free, and maybe she goes backstroke 3 relays, something like that. I don't know, but they've got everything covered, because O'Connor is the only relay leg they graduate, and you know, and that's kind of true of most of these teams. LT only graduates Libby Langen off the free relays. Everything else is back. New Trier, similar situation there, and that's why I mentioned about LT specifically, because they were the team that were left out of the trophies this year, and you know they really want to cash in on one next year. But the same thing is true of these other schools. You know, New Trier is going to want to try to knock off Rosary next year. They're going to have to put a lot of work in the offseason to make that happen. And Stevenson's going to have to do the same if they want to move up or even to hold off LT. But as a whole, I think these teams are a microcosm of a great direction that the state is moving towards being much stronger. You know, we had no way of knowing for sure what the recovery time would be from what happened with COVID, where there wasn't as much pool access, or people were not comfortable going to a pool for practice in the same way they were before the pandemic broke out. And I think what we're seeing is these underclassmen in the statewide, not these specific top teams, but when you look at who made top 16, there's a lot of non-seniors, and you know, I think that's just an incredible thing for the future of girls swimming in Illinois as we expanded to 16. Honestly, you know, we needed to get faster to really look at it and say, okay, this makes sense because these kids deserve to score. I think if you look at the 100 free, that's a race where absolutely there's 4, maybe 5 girls that if you look past 16th place, you would say those kids deserve to score. They went a time that was good enough that should have scored. That's still not true in every race, but I think we're going to get there because there is so much quality youth that we have that is only going to get better these next couple of years, and really make these races stronger and stronger as time goes on. And again, I think it's going to be very interesting. I talked to a few people about this, and in that not that many teams or individuals went a lot faster at the state meet. I thought this was weird because, and I know coaches are, their biggest fear is some kid that expects to qualify doesn't. So they don't want to not suit him, they don't want to not rest him, so on and so forth. But I think you saw very few impressive drops. You had Rosary, you had a few of the other kind of headline stars in the state, but on Friday especially, and I think, and some of it could have been nerves, obviously, because there were some of the relays and the individuals that performed well on Saturday dropped time again from Friday, but there was very small drops in general from sectionals to state, and some of the kids in relays that scored added time. And I wonder if next year, broadly across the state, coaches will back off a little bit at the sectional, because they did make these cuts slower. And now that, the formula has changed a little bit because we've gone to top 16 about what the average is going to be. I believe now that we're officially staying at FMC. It used to be an average of the 30th best time, and now it's the 36th best time for individuals, and it might have been less for relays, maybe 24, and they moved it to 30 if it wasn't both 30 to 36. And the kids that are potential scorers are I think more than good enough to make these cuts without really blowing their opportunity to do even better at state. And I think that should be the goal for everybody, is that, the beauty of swimming certainly is when you go a best time, it doesn't matter where you go it, you still get the gratification of going that time that you've never gone before. But it definitely has to, it's just bittersweet to then know you have one meet left, that if you go slower, you're gonna be able to look at that previous time and go, man, if I would have just gone that time, things would have worked out a lot better. And that's what I think I hope moving forward we protect against is the regret of going a time at the sectional that would have been top 16 or would have been top 8, and then getting slower and ending up not completing that accomplishment when it was deserved and would have been an earned accomplishment based on how fast you could go. So congratulations to all the girls that scored. I think the top 16 made this a much more exciting meet. A lot more teams getting an opportunity for second swims, and in the future, I think it could definitely add a new wrinkle for. I think you're going to have far less people go the best time in the state in the consolation finals. Not that it happens a lot, but we certainly saw it from Katie Kane last year when she missed the top 6. Just those 2 extra spots for top 8, I think, are going to allow top kids to be a little off their game in prelims and still get in and have an opportunity to bounce back and still compete for a state title. And same thing with maybe those second tier kids. They could be a little off their game and get 13th, which normally would have been a death sentence, and now means that they can go up and finish 9th. It's just really great that there's going to be more girls getting rewarded for good performances at state every year. As always, you can email me, skylarprepaquatics.com. You can find me on Twitter at SkylarPrep. We'll be back next season to see how it all shakes out with Rosary, New Trier, Stevenson, and LT, and all the top individuals. Congratulations again to all the swimmers and teams that swam great at state, and we'll see you next year.